What's up, everyone? Welcome to the NBA Pick and Pod. My name is Dawson Shine, and I'm your host. And today, we're kicking it off with some great draft analysis. So, last night was the NBA draft. Now, the way I want to talk about the NBA draft is by giving little reports/grades, like you'll see all over the internet, for each team in alphabetical order, starting off with the Atlanta Hawks. And I'm going to go through every single team, talk about what they added in the draft, or what they traded their picks or players for in order to improve in the first couple of days of the offseason. Now, today, I want to bring up the first 5 teams, starting with the Atlanta Hawks, then the Boston Celtics, Brooklyn Nets, Charlotte Hornets, and Chicago Bulls. I'm going to go through each one of those in order and discuss their picks in the draft, the players they maybe have traded, and the decisions that they're going to have to make going forward about their lineups. So, obviously, before I do that, I want to give you a quick rundown on actually what happened on draft night, in case you missed it. So, kicking it off, I'm going to go through the lottery picks, starting with number 1 overall to the 76ers, Ben Simmons. Number 2 overall to the Lakers, Brandon Ingram, who were the 2 best players in this draft by far, according to most analysts, and was pretty obvious who was going to pick who for this lineup. However, after the first 2 obvious picks of the draft, there came an actual surprise. The 3rd pick to the Celtics was Jaylen Brown, which is a pick that wasn't really predicted by most people because Jaylen Brown was 7th overall on most draft boards, if not 8th. But I'll get into why it's a very good pick for the Celtics later on. Also, Dragan Bender was the number 4th overall pick to the Phoenix Suns, and he was the first international player to go in this draft, which was filled to the brim with international players. Then, the 5th pick in the draft to the Minnesota Timberwolves, Chris Dunn, a great point guard that many thought would go 3rd overall to the Celtics. 6th overall was Buddy Hield, who is a great scorer from Oklahoma, who everyone knows from his heroic performances in the NCAA tournament. 7th overall was Jamal Murray, a great guard who was predicted to be in the top 5 but ended up falling all the way to 7th to the Denver Nuggets, who were very excited to get him. 8th overall was Marquise Chris, who went to the Sacramento Kings. Then Jacob Poeltl was the number 9th overall pick. He went to the Toronto Raptors, and he had a couple of funny things to say about Jonas Valanciunas, who he scored 27 points on in an exhibition game during last offseason. He was joking about that, saying that he might even be a better rotation player than Jonas Valanciunas. Shows the kid's got some pretty good balls. And rounding out the top 10 was another surprise pick, Thon Maker, who was a high school kid who actually repeated a year. He was supposedly 19, coming out of a Canadian high school. He went to the Bucks, and the weird part about this was many were predicting he might fall all the way to the 2nd round because they weren't sure what his age was. Now, I'm going to go into that when we talk about the Milwaukee Bucks in a few days, but let's just leave it at the fact that he might be retiring soon. That's how old he could be. Or he could be 19 and coming right out of high school. No one knows. But those are your top 10 picks, and that's what I'm going to leave you with before I get right into the Atlanta Hawks draft, which I'd give a good grade to, not a fantastic one. I'd give them a nice solid B- for their efforts. But right before the draft, they actually traded their point guard, Jeff Teague, who was one of the better players on their team, to the Indiana Pacers, and in return received the Utah Jazz's 12th overall pick. Now, this was a key trade because they wanted to show support to Dennis Schroeder, their backup point guard, who's been vying for that starting role for the past couple of years, and finally earned it. Now, with that trade, it gave them a nice pick in the draft in order to try and draft talent that could actually contribute right away. Because, as we saw in the playoffs, they're going to need somebody who can actually come in and contribute to the team without having to worry about a couple of years to develop. That's an important key. So, they drafted Taurean Prince, a forward out of Baylor, number 12th overall. He's got a great hustle, great motor, he's a good rebounder, a good defender, and he can score sometimes if you give him the ball in the right situation. The only issue with that is that he doesn't seem to have much of a high ceiling. What you get is what you get with him. But he's already ready to go and developed after a few years in college. So you don't have to worry about stashing him, keeping him on the bench, and seeing if he can get minutes. You can put him on the floor right away and expect some contribution. They also picked DeAndre Bembry, a small forward out of St. Joseph's, 21st overall. DeAndre is supposedly a very good passer and rebounder, from what I've seen, and he's good at scoring off the dribble. However, he lacks a consistent outside shot, and he also lacks a consistent free throw percentage. He's not very good from the line, and he's not very good from the outside. So that's pretty key in modern NBA games. You need to be able to shoot, at least from the line, and also it helps to be able to space the floor, especially with the Hawks' passing and spread offense, which is very important to have key shooters around the floor that can help get open looks for the team. So that outside shooting is going to be a key thing fans are going to have to look for to see if it develops over the coming months and years. Finally, they drafted Isaiah Cordonier, a shooting guard out of France, 44th overall, which is an alright pick. He's probably going to be a stash player. You don't have to expect much from him right away. But the 2 picks in the first round, DeAndre and Torian, are expected to be great contributors right away. Moving on to the next team, the Boston Celtics, we have a massive lineup of picks. I'm only going to go over the first round for the Boston Celtics so I don't kill you guys with boredom. They had quite a few picks in the draft, 8 to be exact. They did trade 2 of them for a 2019 Clippers first rounder. That was the 31st and 35th overall picks in the draft. But they still had 3 first round picks. Their third pick in the draft, Jaylen Brown, who many are very worried about because they didn't expect it. He's a small forward from University of California, and he is a great defender and an outside scorer if he can continue to keep his consistent three-point shooting. Now, that's one thing that the Celtics needed badly in the playoffs last year, outside scoring. I remember in the Hawks series, they would get open looks on the outside because of Isaiah Thomas's slashing and passing. However, they could not make a shot. So it's a great pickup for them if he can pan out and shoot as well as he did, especially in his combines. So we'll see how that works out. But it looks to be a very good pick despite many people being wary about it. Also, 16th overall, they picked Guerchan Yabusele, a power forward from France. He was 16th overall. Not many people expected this pick, but they're knocking it before they actually analyze it. He's got a great rebounding motor. He's also a good scorer. He can shoot from outside and has a good post game. Not great, but good. The only issue with him is that he's a little undersized, and he needs a couple more years of experience before he can really come and contribute right away to the Celtics. He's more of a draft and stash because they obviously can't have 4 or 5 different players from the draft on their team at one time. And their third first round pick, Ante Zizic, center from Croatia. He was 23rd overall, and he is a great pickup. He might have been the second best true center in the entire draft. He is a great rebounder, absolutely exceptional. And if you look at him compared to Jacob Poeltl, who went 9th overall to the Toronto Raptors, he's actually a much stronger and more willing to bang down low player than Poeltl is, which means that he can get rebounds, and that translates well to any basketball game. He could be a huge contributor eventually, and the Celtics really needed a center who can help get rebounds. Their lineup is very small and struggles to rebound and get outlet passing. That could be very important on the defensive end especially. Now, those are all 3 of their first round picks. In the second round, they got a couple of good players, Ben Bentel, Demetrius Jackson, and Abdel Nader. Now, those aren't really well-known players, and they probably won't be playing right away, but we'll see how they do in workouts, and I'll keep you posted on that. But I won't bore you with all the details. Next up is the Brooklyn Nets, who only had 2 picks, one which they got via Indiana, the 20th overall, for trading Thaddeus Young, and they picked Caris LeVert, a shooting guard from Michigan, who's had a lot of injury problems recently with his feet. The past 2 seasons, he's only played 24 games, but he has showed great flashes of skill in those 24 games. And then the second round, 42nd pick overall via Utah, they got Isaiah Whitehead, a shooting guard out of Seton Hall. Now, my issue with Isaiah Whitehead has nothing to do with him personally, but the fact that he's a Brooklyn native, so he's a hometown kid. The problem with that is that they might have picked him merely because of the hometown allure of having a player from where you're from. He might not actually be as good as they want him to be, and he might not even be able to contribute. They do need any good player they can get, and that's what he is. He's a good player. But the problem with the pick was it might have been a little biased by where he's from, and it may not actually lead to great success on the court. I wouldn't expect too much out of Isaiah Whitehead, but let's hopefully be pleasantly surprised because they need all the help they can get in the Brooklyn Nets if they hope to stay afloat next season and not tank for the Boston Celtics again. And the fourth team I want to talk about, the Charlotte Hornets, had no picks in the draft. They traded away their only pick, 22nd overall, for Marco Bellinelli from Sacramento. They did this so that they could actually have some perimeter scoring because Nicholas Batum and Courtney Lee, 2 of their better perimeter scorers on the Hornets, are both hitting free agency this year, and if they lose one or both of them, they're going to have almost no outside shooting, which will be very difficult to get any good looks on offense without a perimeter scorer. So they decided to go with a proven player, Marco Bellinelli, over an unproven college player. Really not a bad move in my opinion, and I think it was overall a B plus or a B move. Final team I want to talk about today is the Chicago Bulls. They picked Denzel Valentine, small forward out of Michigan State, 14th overall, the last pick in the lottery. And then in the second round, they picked Paul Zipser, a small forward out of Germany, another international player. Now, I do like their picks, and especially because they just traded Derrick Rose to the New York Knicks, which, if you guys didn't know, is really, really weird. They got point guard Jerian Grant, veteran guard Jose Calderon, and Robin Lopez, the center from the Knicks, which is a decent haul, but really seems a little bit lopsided towards the Knicks. We'll see how it works out, though, because the Bulls seem to be not fed up, I shouldn't say that, with Derrick Rose, but they seem to have moved on and are hoping to rebuild a little bit and retool around Jimmy Butler. So we'll see how that works out. And in order to do that, they decided to draft Denzel Valentine, who's a small forward shooting guard out of Michigan State. He has great wingspan, versatility. He's a good passer with great court vision. And he's a great three-point shooter, despite people not really realizing that. And that could be a great contributor to the offense of the Chicago Bulls. The only problem he really has is he's not a great, quick defender on ball. Now, he's good at defending team-wise because he can understand schemes very well. He's intelligent. But without lateral quickness and without great hands, he gets blown by quite a bit on defense, especially when he's facing up against a guard or someone who's a smaller player. That can lead to some difficulties on the defensive end, especially in the NBA, where every player is quick and strong and powerful. And then their other pick, Paul Zipser, is a versatile wing player who can guard 1 to 3, but he really can't guard any big fours. He's only 6'8", he's 210, pretty lightweight. He's got a low bust potential, which means that he's pretty much what you see is what you get, and he's got some great hops around the rim. But the problem is he's not a great shooter under pressure, which is going to be difficult to shoot well in the NBA, considering you're always going to have a defender near you, or at least more often than not, especially with a team like the Bulls. And they don't really feel like his ceiling is going to be that high. Because you know what you get with him, that might be it. There might not be any more, great potential for this player, Paul Zipser, to actually improve. We'll see how he does, especially with his shooting, but he probably will be a player that you don't see too much of in the NBA, and he might even just stay in Europe. So overall, the Bulls made a decent move, especially with their first-round pick, Denzel Valentine, who I think just needs to work on his ability to defend, and they definitely retooled a little bit by getting younger with Jerian Grant, and getting center Robin Lopez in case Joakim Noah or Pau Gasol decides to leave in free agency. But we'll see how that goes later on. That's all for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed my first 5 teams of the draft analysis and off-season analysis. If you have anything you want to say about it, leave a comment. Also, if you did enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, and be ready for tomorrow because we're going to have 5 more teams coming at you. So let's get excited. Let's keep watching. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.